a real threat rematerializes. Here's your look at the Hiya Toys Exquisite Mini Predator Jungle Hunter Water Emergence. Exquisite Mini is a new standard setting series for 1/18th scale, featuring Super Articulation action figures under Hiya Toys. Before we get the review started for the Water Emergence Jungle Hunter, the first thing we're going to want to do is take this tape measure of mine and measure it to the very top of the figure. Making sure, of course, I'm not hitting the side of his arm because that's going to throw off his measurements just a little bit. I'm going to stop it right there. Water Emergence Predator from Hiya Toys stands 5.4 inches in height. We could switch that over to centimeters, revealing that this Exquisite Mini is about 14 centimeters in height. Seeing as we have looked at some Exquisite Mini Predators recently, let's bring those figures in so you can see the difference in size. First, starting with the Crucified Predator armored version, and then the one that was stripped down, the regular Crucified Predator, part of my arm. Now you can see, though, being that the ones on either side are from the Predators line with the S on the end of it, they're going to be a little bit bigger and a lot larger in size than the one that's in the middle. The one that's in the middle, the one that we are going to be looking at, the Water Emergence version of the Jungle Hunter, is coming, I think, from the same mold that they used for the original Predators. And because of that, it's a little slimmer, it's a little slender, it's a lot shorter than the ones on either side of it. Let's have a look at the figure's accessories. Starting first, we'll have a look at the display stand. It is the same muddy terrain as the ones that we have gotten before. In fact, moving this one over and bringing in the one that came included with the armored Crucified Predator, there doesn't seem to be anything different between them. Although I will say, though, this one, the one that came with the armored Crucified, seems a little bit darker. But I think more mileage may vary. It may not be a case where specifically they wanted to make this one a little bit lighter. Although, if they were going to be making one different, I really feel like this could have been the opportunity that they could have used maybe a clear plastic or something to simulate water instead of a muddy terrain. After all, this is called the Water Emergence Predator. It would have been nice to see something a little bit different, but then to be fair, you wouldn't be able to connect them and they wouldn't look like they were part of the same terrain. Connecting them, you say? Yes, connecting them, I say. You can take these eye brackets that come included with it as well, and those just fit on the bottom of it. I find it helps to do it on the top, and then instead of rather doing it from the bottom. And then you just attach the two pieces together, just like that, and just like that. Make sure it's all secure. And you basically have one larger terrain. Now rinse and repeat this step several times over, and you can get yourself quite a large diorama terrain. I like the look of that. And actually, when it comes to displaying these, I'd like to add multiples together. Even if I'm not going to put multiple Predators together, at least so I have a larger kind of, like I said, a terrain that you can have them standing on top of. We'll put that to the side. The figure also comes included, and I think this is a nice touch, with a clear skull. It's a bit strange that the skull would also be clear, that he's cloaked the skull, but I can bypass that for the fact it's pretty neat to see a clear skull for a change. It is missing its lower jaw, but it still has its spinal cord attached. It's a really nice looking piece. Again, a little perplexing that they wouldn't have given you a materialized version of the skull, but that's okay. You can put it into the figure's hands. Now, currently, for the hands, they're relaxed, exaggerated hands or gestured hands. He also comes with a couple of gripping hands as well. So if you want to do that, you can go ahead, take the one hand off, wiggle it off the peg. Something I would want to say, though, for this figure is that the material that they used for the plastic feels a little bit more gummier. We will find then the hand that we need. Just plug that back into place. Making sure, of course. Now, if you have issues getting these onto the pegs, listen up. Got some 411 for you. You can go ahead and just take a hairdryer, heat up the socket joint. Although with this, the type of plastic that they're using, it could actually damage the plastic, being, like I said, the plastic being a little bit more softer. Anyways, you can go ahead then and take the skull and fit it into its hands. Just like that. The thing about it, though, going back to the idea that these hands are a little gummier, I find holding accessories becomes a little bit more difficult. A little bit more difficult. There you go. Finally got it in place. See what I've claimed? This translucent skull? So you can do that. The skull isn't, of course, as you can clearly see here, not the same coloring of plastic as the rest of the figure's body. The figure's body is kind of coming across more like a smoke plastic. So it is a little bit different in design. Go ahead and put that to the side. And then, of course, like I said, the figure has the other hand as well that can swap out over on this side. So moving those accessories out of the way, maybe we'll just keep this hand in for the time being. Getting a closer look at the water emergence predator. You may see me doing this a lot of times during this review. This keeps wanting to shift down its shoulder. I almost feel like I want to take the head off and just remove it completely. Or maybe just take a little bit, just a little bit of that bad word that people don't like to use when it comes to collecting, a little bit of glue. Maybe just a little dollop at the top shoulder there, just so that this stays in place. Not to the point where I want it permanently glued to the torso, but maybe just a little bit on the shoulder. Just a little bit. Just a dab will do. And then at least that's not going to go anywhere. Because I find like this does shift around his shoulder a lot. And again, it's making use of a very, very soft plastic. Getting a closer look at its head sculpt. Very much a traditional looking jungle hunter. Everything on it is more of this smokier plastic, except for the gauntlets, except for the head, and except for the shoulder-mounted cannon. Some of the things are actually solid plastic, though, like this piece right here. All the other things that you'll see when you're looking at it, in actual fact, is still the see-through plastic. Still that smokier plastic that they then just painted over top of it. Even like the blades, for example, also are a clear plastic. The head sculpt is looking good. Now, this is supposed to be the predator emerging from the water, where it sort of has that circuitry as it's trying to decloak itself. And you can kind of get that effect going on here for the body as well as the head. Kind of a bit of that spark effect happening here on the head sculpt. Again, it's using a clear plastic, and then they've just painted over top of it. Dry brushed a dark silver, so at least you still get the indication that it's a full solid plastic, when it really, in actual fact, it isn't. The plasma caster still is functioning, so you can rotate that back and forth. I'm a little bit more worrisome, I think, when it comes to handling of this figure. Now, generally, clear plastic doesn't fare so well when it comes to figures. One thing I will tell you, at least to its credit, is that they're using opaque plastic for all the joints. So if you were worried that plastic would be eventually breaking on this guy, I don't think that's going to be so much the issue. Though, again, I will say, like, the plastic that they used almost has a bit of a rubbery gumminess going for it. It does have some decent details, though, to its credit. Again, you've got the little gauntlet blade on the side. The blade itself does retract outward just a little bit. Well, a fair bit, actually. And then you can just push that back in. So that at least still functions. We spin the figure around so you can see it from the back. The colors change a bit. Some of the areas look a little bit more yellow than others, like the back of his body, for example, comes across more like a translucent yellow than it does a translucent clear. You still have the electricity that's running through the body here, for example, and that's been done using two colors, the white and then the blue. It's also on the lower area of its legs as well. Of course, it does have the little necklace there on the top. The necklace isn't so much the issue. It's this spine cord. Again, I talked about earlier. There's really no way around it, short of, again, just gluing that in place. It's about the only thing, I think, or taking it off completely, because this does flop around a lot. Even though it's using still translucent plastic, you can still see that they've used the mold from previous Hiya Toys Exquisite Minis. It's a nice way to get mileage out of a figure's mold, exactly. And, you know, of course, people that are into the Predator films would certainly like to get a water emergence version of the Predator, and I think this one does a pretty good job of it. The only thing I would say, though, is, again, like the plastic type that they've used here, it's really hard to see it, I'm sure, in camera. You almost just have to take my word for it. Like, the material, it doesn't feel like a solid plastic. It feels like more of a gummier, rubbery material that they've used. You see it more so, I think, for the fingers. That's probably a better way to show you. Very, very soft plastic. A little bit harder, like I said, to hold the accessory in its hand. For the figure's articulation, let's go ahead and do that right now. The head rotates back and forth, and as you can see, as I'm rotating the head, hinges up, down, and all the stuff that would go along with a ball joint on a figure, you can see like this part of its body shifts around. It's not even until you really start moving things around you realize that this is still part of like an overlaid piece. This isn't part of its torso. This is a separate piece. Again, you can see me as I'm moving this around, just how soft that plastic is. It's a very thin plastic too, a very thin overlay that they put over top of the torso. Luckily though, this isn't anywhere near an articulation point, because if you were moving like the torso around, I would worry that that would start ripping and pulling this, because I think the thinness of that material, that would probably break right off. Anyways though, for the arms, let's bring this back up here. The arms hinge out at a comfortable 90-degree angle bend. That's the same actually on both sides. You can bring the arms forward, and technically all the way around as well. Swivel on the bicep, single hinge on the elbow. You can also move as well the forearm, and you can also rotate the hands. A little harder, probably not the best hand to have chosen, but this side you can also rotate the hand. It's a little harder to get to it because you've got, of course, the blade right above it. Upper torso is on a ball joint. Lower torso is on a ball joint as well. Just get that back up there. There we go. You can split the legs on the Predator. You can also, of course, move them forward and back. Swivel on the top cut of the thigh, where that's attached to the peg. It is always interesting to kind of see clear figures because you can see the way that they're constructed. As I said earlier, though, they're using an opaque plastic, so if you're worried that clear plastic pegged figures generally have broken in the past, I don't feel as much that worry when it comes to these figures because, again, like they're using an opaque plastic for the joints. Double hinge on the knee, though. Can't swivel the lower leg, but of course you can hinge the feet back and forth, ankle pivot them, and you can also rotate the toes all the way around, or the feet all the way around. One other thing about the Water Emergence Predator I did notice, though, and as a takeaway before we head on over to the rotisserie, is that with this figure, being that the materials seem a little bit more softer, I find I have more of a problem with this figure actually standing. Again, you could chalk it up to the fact that, like I said, the material that they're using is a little bit more gummier. By all means, though, bring back this display stand that we looked at earlier. Take the figure's feet, attach them onto the post, and then at least you got a little bit more of a stable Predator that you can put on display. Kind of a neat looking Predator here with the Jungle Hunter Water Emergence. Because of course they're using that clear plastic, they decided to also color it, so I think it would match a little bit more its skin when it was rematerializing. The resulting of it, though, is I couldn't help but notice looking at the plastic, it looks like it came from a smoker's collection. Because after a while, the nicotine will stain the things that are in your collection space. It kind of looks like it's been affected by cigarette smoke. Joking aside, though, it is actually a nice-looking Predator. Still a little worried by the fact that the material that they used is a little more gummier than regular clear. Generally, when you get a clear figure, it's usually the same type of plastic as a regular plastic figure, and it just happens to be clear. But this one is a little bit different by that. The Water Emergence Predator almost comes across a little bit more rubbery, and as a result of it, the figure has a little bit more difficulty holding things like the skull or standing upright. So, of course, here in Final Looks, on the rotisserie, I've got the Water Emergence Predator standing on his display stand, which is likely going to be the way I'm going to go with it. Short of the fact it does look like it's been affected by nicotine, it's got some good coloring going for it. And it really is clever at the way that they've just taken that clear plastic and painted still the armor instead of actually having the head as a more solid plastic. It's a nice looking piece. It has some difficulty standing, but the Water Emergence Jungle Hunter is still a nice looking Exquisite Mini to be putting on display. A big thank you again to the folks over at Hiya Toys that provided this sample of the Exquisite Mini Predator Jungle Hunter Water Emergence. What do you guys think of this figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. And hey now, if you are new to this channel, enjoying all the content you're seeing, there's a better way to make sure that you're getting all those reminders of when new videos are coming up. Of course, you can always periodically come back to this channel. That's always highly recommended. But make sure as well, you're subscribing to this channel, you're hitting the bell notification, and that, yes, you are also coming back to this channel because we will be looking at more of the Exquisite Mini Predator figures from Hiya Toys. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.